Good evening, and welcome to the Inlaks Fine Art Awards ceremony for 2023. Thank you for making the time to be with us this evening. We're back in Mumbai after a break of 5 years. From 2018 to 2020, we hosted the awards in Delhi, and the last two editions were online due to the pandemic. So it feels wonderful to be back at an in-person event to welcome our 2023 awardees. As you all know, the Inlaks Fine Art Award is one of the most coveted for emerging artists in the country. It is usually presented to 5 young artists, all recent university graduates. The awardees receive financial support from the foundation through the year and will also attend a month-long residency in India. This year's talented artists have been chosen by a distinguished jury made up of Sheila Gowda, Shilpa Gupta, Jagdeep Jagpal, and Sanchayan Ghosh. I cannot thank these jury members enough for spending long hours to identify the awardees through a meticulous selection process. Our Flourishing Arts program would not be what it is today without the vision of our chairman, Azad Shivdasani, a vision that has allowed us to expand the program and identify the needs of young art practitioners in the country. For those of you who would like to know more about the foundation, Inlaks is known primarily as a scholarship awarding institution. This is still its major role in recognized academic subjects, though it is also known as one of the foremost institutions providing scholarships in the field of art and sculpture. In fact, since 1982, when Rekha Rudwitiya received the first Grant Art Award, more than 250 artists have benefited by way of a grant, scholarship, or award. The Foundation's other programs in support of the arts are our residency programs, which enable Indian artists to work for varying periods of time at international institutions like Gasworks and Delphina in London, the Darling Foundry in Montreal, ISCP in New York, the Rijksacademie in Amsterdam, Skauhagen in the state of Maine, Akshal Alwan in Beirut, and the Pistoletto Foundation in Italy. In India, we have supported residencies at institutions like One Shanti Road in Bangalore, What About Art, Kona and Space 118 in Bombay, Tifa in Pune, Sandarbh in Rajasthan, and Khoj in Delhi. We have supported too many art programs to mention here this evening. The booklet on your seat outlines all the various programs we've supported over the years. I'd urge you to go through it when you have the time. Our alumni constitute a key segment of our extended family. Year after year, members of our alumni take time off from their busy schedules to help us select candidates for our awards, grants, and scholarships. We truly appreciate their support. Our awardees this year are Rabil Khan, Khandakar Ohida, Mohit Shilare, Gyanvant Yadav, and Shish Dev Sagaria. Can we have a round of applause for them, please? They're seated here with us. May I now ask Professor Ghosh to introduce the awardees, who will take you through a presentation of their practice.
A very good evening to you all, and thank you, Amita ji, for giving me this opportunity to be part of this fantastic platform. I think Inlaks India Foundation is doing a fantastic job for especially young artists to sustain their practice after their institutional career and move into a much more professional world. And I really enjoyed this being part of this jury session, especially sharing the platform with Sheila Gowda and Shilpa Gupta, one of our most important artists in the new millennium. I think it's really an honor to be seeing the works together with you, and then coming to a kind of, I think what happened was a very exciting group of young artists that we met, and we really enjoyed looking at their works and the criticality they are developing, and it's really important that how that is sustained and supported in a long-term basis. So I would just like to read a little bit of the short bios of the 5 artists whom we have really enjoyed looking at their work, and especially I thought that what was most striking to all of us was how they are looking at different tools of practice in a new way of engaging back to a social relationship, and how practice can become a relevant context in the art world also, and also in real life in which they are engaging. So it's really an honor to have all 5 of you here. And so Rabil, I will just read a short bio of Rabil. Rabil Khan is from Shantiniketan, Birbhum, West Bengal. Over the past few years, through a multidisciplinary approach, he is exploring the diverse identities of his home and its surrounding geographies. His source of inspiration and research are the people, communities, and the landscapes of Birbhum. He generates engagements, his interactions, memories with otherwise overlooked communities generate conversations that act as the dialogue of his practice. Recently, Rabil has also worked with the Films Division, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, Government of India on 2 projects. He is a founding and active member of Uthon, a collective space to incorporate various disciplines based in Shantiniketan, Birbhum. He is also developing a space in Shantiniketan for research-based activities and community engagements. So may I just call Rabil to share his small presentation?
Hello, good evening. And I'm Rabil Khan from Shantiniketan, Birbhum, and thank you all and Inlaks फाउंडेशन ऑल्सो. तो अभी एक शॉर्ट वीडियो बनाया है तो उसी को दिखाना चाहूँगा थोड़ा. थैंक यू.
Hello, I am Rabil Khan from Shantiniketan, Birbhum, West Bengal. And I have done my bachelor's and master's in painting from Kalapon Vishwavarthi University. Since my last few projects, the primary method of my practice is research-based and community-based, working to explore the diverse identity of these geographies and its people. And presently, I am focusing on Birbhum, Amar Birbhum. Here, I will be sharing some fragment of the previous project.
আমার বীরভূম বলছি কেন? আমার বীরভূমের আইডিয়াটা কোথায় গিয়ে অন্যদের থেকে আলাদা হচ্ছে, যেখানে বীরভূমকে একটা কালচারাল জায়গা থেকে দেখা হয়, সেখানে আমি একটা ক্যামোফ্লেজ কালচারে এক্সপোজের কথা বলছি, যেখানে ডিকনস্ট্রাকশনের একটা আইডিয়া পাচ্ছি, যেমন ডিকনস্ট্রাকশন অফ এ ল্যান্ডস্কেপ অ্যান্ড হাউ দ্যাট ক্যান বি রিফ্লেক্টেড ইন্টু এ ওয়ার্ল্ড অ্যান্ড ডেভেলপ অ্যান আইডিয়া অফ কনস্ট্রাকশন. That entire process consists of multiple collaboration between artist, worker and architect. I am using this form of interdisciplinary practice as a tool to identify a perspective or changes of landscape. From house to a community, community to institution, institution to constitution. To read or be familiar with this through workshops. Those aspects are reflected in my practice. Engaging with a community, there is always a platform needed where collective action can be possible. What is the importance of Chatal? Is context of private public space. While traveling and placing the work at different sites in the Kalabon living campus, we were questioning the purpose of the site. Here I am engaging with the new student, and through their sharing and learning, they became familiar with this individual mapping of this Kalabon living campus. I believe art as a practice where generating a collective process of working, learning and sharing through workshop method is both interactive and collaborative. And also I am trying to find out what are the possibility of employing the traditional technique to contemporary language. আমার কাজের মধ্যে মেটেরিয়ালের যে হিস্ট্রি এবং তার সোশ্যালি আইডেন্টিটির যে ট্রান্সফরমেশন কীভাবে আমার প্র্যাকটিসের মধ্যে একটা ডায়লগ জেনারেট করছে, যেমন গান এজ এ মিডিয়াম কীভাবে একটা কালচার তৈরি করতে পারে, এই যে প্রশ্নটা একটা কমিউনিটির কালচারাল ফেনোমেনন এবং তার যে ডেইলি লিভিং কনস্ট্রাকশন, সেটাকে বিচার বা নির্ধারণ করছে। আমাদের এখানে যারা লোকালি গান তৈরি করছিল, তাদের ছেলেরা যখন মিলিটারি সার্ভিস জয়েন করছে, এই দুটোর মধ্যে একটা কমন প্রশ্ন ছিল মৃত্যু। মৃত্যুকে কিভাবে একটা জাস্টিফিকেশনের জায়গায় নিয়ে যাওয়া হচ্ছে, মৃত্যু কোনটা ঠিক বা কোনটা ভুল, এই পুরো বিষয়ের মধ্যে দিয়ে ইনস্টলেশনটা তৈরি হচ্ছে, যেখানে একটা কালচারাল ওভারল্যাপিংকে দেখাচ্ছে, যার মধ্যে আমি বেশ কিছু প্রশ্ন তৈরি করেছি এবং আমার এক্সপিরিয়েন্স ও মেমোরির মধ্যে দিয়ে ভিউয়ার্সদেরকে নিয়ে যাওয়ার চেষ্টা করি। এই যে জার্নির মধ্যে ভিউয়ার্সরা ইন্টারাকশন করছে বা এক্সপিরিয়েন্স করছে, এর মধ্যে দিয়ে নিজেরাই ভিকটিম হচ্ছে একটা কালচারের প্রতি। আমার এই ইনস্টলেশনের মধ্যে আমি বেশ কিছু ইন্টারাকশনের জায়গা তৈরি করি, যেখানে ভিউয়ার্সরা ডেমোক্রেট কালচারকে ফিল আপ করার মাধ্যমে নিজেরাই ভিকটিম হয়ে যাবে। এই ইন্টারাকশন যে সিচুয়েশনটা রেডি করেছি এই পুরো ইনস্টলেশনের মধ্যে, যেমন গান রিলেটেড যে সমস্ত নিউজ বিভিন্ন জায়গায় অনলাইন পাবলিশ হচ্ছে, সে আর্কাইভকে ব্যবহার করে একটা বোর্ড রেডি করি, যে পেপারগুলোর ভিউয়ার্সরা নিজেরাই ফিল আপ করছে এবং এই ইন্টারাকশনের মধ্যে নিজেদেরকেই ভিক্টিমাইজ করছে। আরেকটা ইন্টারেক্টিভ পার্ট হলো কিভাবে গান এজ এ মিডিয়াম একটা কালচারাল মেমোরি কালেক্টর হতে পারে। ভিউয়ার্সরা যখন বন্দুকটা নিজেদের হাতে ধরছে এবং সেটা দিয়ে ড্রয়িং করছে, সেই ড্রয়িংয়ের মধ্যে বেশ কিছু মেমোরি কালেক্ট হচ্ছে। এই প্রসেসের মধ্যে বন্দুকটা প্রত্যেক ইন্টারাকশনে ক্ষয়ে যাচ্ছে। এই ক্ষয়ে যাওয়া অবস্থাকে আমি অ্যাজ এ মেটাফরিক্যালি ল্যান্ডস্কেপের চেঞ্জেস বা জিওগ্রাফিক্যাল লোকেশনে যে সমস্ত ওপেন কোল মাইন, আন্ডারগ্রাউন্ড কোল মাইন, স্টোন মাইন খুঁড়ে বের করছে বা খনন হচ্ছে বা সেই প্রবণতা রয়েছে, তার সাথে ডিমোলিশ করার যে সম্পূর্ণ অ্যাকশন বা সাইকেলটাকে গানের সাথে আমি মেটাফরিক্যালি কানেক্ট করছি। শুধু তাই না, তার সাথে কালচারাল হিস্ট্রি ও যেভাবে আস্তে আস্তে ক্ষয়ে যাচ্ছে বা শেষ হচ্ছে, সেটাকেও আমি এখানে দেখানোর চেষ্টা করেছি।
Thank you, Rabil. May I now invite Khandakar Wahida to come up while I read her short profile. Please be with us. Khandakar Wahida is a visual artist and filmmaker. She works between West Bengal and New Delhi. Her areas of interest lie in lens-based mediums, installation art, drawings, and paintings, whose source of influence includes conscious notions of different countered thoughts from her vicinity, like personal memory, marginalized voices, collective trauma, and also nonlinear stories interacting with various cultural layers of society. Her work has been featured as several national and international platforms, such as 12th Berlin Biennale for Contemporary Art, Germany, 2022, 59th International Art Exhibition La Biennale di Venezia as part of the fourth module of the Ukraine Pavilion Public Program in Venice, 2022, also in Serendipity Art Festival, Goa, 2019, and also the Festival of Video Art by Indian Contemporary Artists at Kirunadar Museum of Art, New Delhi. So, Avida, please.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Sure, can I- Yeah, thank you. Hello. Good evening, everyone, and it's really nice to meet you all here. And very thank you to join our presentation today. And I will be showing a small presentation which is pre-prepared. And so, can you play the presentation? I have been practicing art and exploring sociopolitical insolence by critiquing my predominant cultural hegemony to deconstruct the idea of conventional morality. I have my domicile in Bengal, so my observations of different cultural spheres from rural Bengal to Kolkata and from Kolkata to Delhi nurtured my way of artistic expression. My area of interest lie in moving images, drawings, paintings, and installations whose source of influence includes conscious notions of different encountered opinions from my vicinity like personal memory, minority voice, collective trauma, and also nonlinear stories interacting with various cultural layers of society. Growing up in South Asian diaspora always exposed me to various societal discourses and provided me with a scheme of ideas that I always channel into my practice with an interdisciplinary nature. My entire artistic research develops through individual and collective experience from our social structure and explores several materials and mediums by interacting with different art practitioners and people. My art practice also generates a social dialogue that prompts several constructive suggestions for transcending dichotomies in history, culture, and conflict. I also explore the pressure of multifarious identity and social hierarchy and gender stereotypes through that I investigate the positions of declared second sex in the context of alienation. Precisely, my work tries to understand the stubble layer between culture and interpersonal oppressions, while the incident of conflict paradigm ignite me to analyze the consequence and intervene with the cultural divergence. One of my film installations, Dream Your Museums, explored the socio-political hierarchies that shape the vernacular identities, which inquiries into the conditions of capital, class privilege, and the persistence of colonial framework that exclude certain bodies from participating in an archival space. It's the story of my uncle Khandakar Salim, a compulsive hoarder who has amassed a vast number of items in his home over 47 years. The film creates a tensions between post-colonial imaginaries of preservations and the micro-universe of a Muslim inhabitant of rural India. A conversations between two figures in the short film that completes the installations established a dreamscape with the item on display, which animated by the intense imaginations of accumulator. Recently, I am on researching a feature documentary film, Museum on the Moon, and also trying to understand the alternative museum in the context of post-colonial imagination.
আপনার নিজের কিছু নেই, একদম নিজের?
আজ কিছু নো কাজ, পরে দেখাবো তোমায়।
May I now invite Mohit Shelare to come up. Mohit is an artist based primarily in Delhi. His practice is constructed around how body, waste, and resilience intertwine with each other in various sites, events, and conditions. He draws the body and sight together and develops gestures such as breathing, drinking, walking, and talking into a critical dialogue. The research he is developing through his practice inquires larger questions such as what it means to be impure. Through performative analysis, he focuses on Dalit consciousness and their struggles with the politics of ecology. His practice culminates into performances, objects, drawings, and text. Mohit facilitates research and conducts modules in universities and institutions. Presently, he serves as a visiting faculty at the National Institute of Design, Kurukshetra. So, Mohit, it's all yours.
Thank you, Sanchan. And thank you, Amita, and the whole Inlaks team for making this day very grateful. I'm simply grateful to have the award and looking forward to develop my further projects through it. So I will present some slides and simply talk about it. Can we have a presentation, please? Thank you. Yeah. Next. Yeah, so simply I start my practice to investigate some sort of traces, which leads me to the different modes where I see residues, remains left over, and their journey towards waste, and how we understand waste, which kind of opens the idea of impurity, and how can one understand politics of purity, and that leads to the idea of politics of decay, which Santosh Sadanand talks about. What is available is the politics of decay, or the politics of Dalit. And I'm interested with sites and situations and understanding what is toxicity in our day. And these ideas is kind of opening towards thinking, rethinking, and constructing. Next. I deal with different mediums, but I think drawing is a primary medium. I train as a painter, so drawing is an everyday practice I have, but that is kind of taking place in different mediums. So draw is something which I think comes in my work a lot. So that kind of joins performance, lecture performances, object, images, some sort of moving towards performative research and opening a conversation. And this kind of process becomes a non-disciplinary. What I mean by non-disciplinary, not interested with any medium, but some sort of deconstructing the medium, the idea of medium itself. Moving ahead. This is my project which I developed at Ashkal Alwan, Lebanon, Beirut, which was a one-year fellowship. And I simply collected traces or the residue or the wrapping paper of the bread. Next. This is the wrapping paper, which was my everyday meal during my fellowship. And this is the which has the wrapping paper has oil traces on it, and I simply started investigating them. Next. This is the this particular drawing is a stall of the bread seller, which kind of shares the neighborhood where the lot of construction site is taking place. It's a like huge billionaire projects is taking place. Next. Again, developing this kind of reports which has this kind of translucent nature, the topological idea to see something with the form of oil traces, and kind of looking at different methods to opening up. And I come up with the observation that this particular bread is consumed by the construction worker, which is coming from the Syria and different countries, Philippines, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and this kind of food going back to the construction site where the energy is kind of transforming into the construction of the foundation or the building. Next. This is the ongoing construction site, which probably is done now. But this is the foundation. It's a really deep dug foundation where you have a pipelines and all. Where I throw a simple thread with the small stone and measure the depth of the dug land. And this thread comes on my wrist until and I kind of wrap it on my wrist until the blood circulation numbs up, and that's how the measure of the depth comes into the body. Next. The same dug land also brings a moisture soil. If you go more inside of the soil, earth, you find moisture soil. So I'm holding this soil, which is coming from the excavator, from the dug land, and holding until the heat of my body and moisture of the soil exchange each other. Next. And kind of again looking back to the residue traces and this kind of in this particular case more archaeological understanding to look at something. Next. Producing reports, this again translucent report where you can open each page differently and see more depth to the each image. Next. Thinking about reconstructing the site into the studio, where I have kind of opened this cavity space or some sort of abandoned space, or go down where I have only kind of kept small wood, and that becomes a pedestal or the stand for the as a platform for the residue or the drawings or the some sort of research, material research which was coming up, and rethinking about the construction site and the neighborhood. Next. Yeah, again, these are the kind of environment of bringing back the material research or performative objects into the space. Next. Thinking about traces, residue, I kind of started investigating more into it, and dust is something material I'm interested with. This is the one of the site at Greater Noida where me and one of my friend kind of participate and spend a couple of months over there and develop one project. It's called Breath After Crossing Yellow Line. Next. So this is the tiny spike ball of dust which is coming from the dust which is lying on our body or skin, and I'm collecting this dust every day, which is also particle of skin and the sweat, and kind of shrinking the space into the tiny ball. Next. If you see the very blur photo, sorry for the blur photo, but it has a very thin line which is coming from the performance where I'm closer to the floor, kind of inhaling the dust and exhaling the cleaning. And thinking about dust and his everyday relation with thinking about the worker also, thinking about who is closer to dust. Next. And this kind of ephemeral projects come into the no material in hand in a way, but remain in more like a photograph. But I'm more interested with developing conversations and some sort of live nature into it. So this is the open studio which I have done at my studio in Delhi. It's called the project called Zeno Knowing, where I'm kind of drawing pics in the particular site, specifically the corners of the city or the sewage line or the waste sites or the garbage sites. Next. These are some drawings which kind of locates the pig and also thinking about pig or pork is a huge industry which exports the pork to the European countries, but same time as a very religiously or ideally very shameful animal. Next. Again, going to this particular waist lines, back lines, and producing videos, picking material, working with it, experimenting with. Next. Bringing this idea of conversation into different subjects. So this is the project where the project called Image Syndrome, where I was collecting images of violence, specifically 2019 riots in Delhi, and kind of reconstructing the drawing from the screen, materializing them, giving them some sort of surface texture, and bringing them to the some sort of material and circulating them, sharing them with friends, sticking them on neighborhoods or walls, and probably creating some sort of interaction with people. And this is the kind of one body of the papers where all people are sitting around and talking about what is image, not as a mourning side, but as some sort of theoretical leap to the what is image. Next. These are some of the drawings from that project. Again, same idea of image syndrome, bringing the sketchbook as a public library, opening it for the public, and also thinking about the gesture of something holding up and hands up. Next. These are some snapshot or screenshots from the video which I had developed, or the performance which I had developed in my hometown. This kind of standing. Next. Standing as a mode of voice, mode of kind of descent, brings different ideas, durations, as well as some ephemeral experience for me. So this is the performance which I have done in Mumbai. I often call my performances action. So I am standing in middle of the bridge. The bridge is not anymore there. It connects the CST and Times of India, the two parts basically. And I'm standing there without any motion or movement during the working hours. And these are the per second images of the performance. And the idea was whenever viewer will cross the work, they can pick some images and break that chronology, which was happening in the bridge also. Again, thinking about the experience of performance and the site of performance and bringing them into the material. Next. This is the one of the images from 11,000 images of the performance. Next. Thinking about residue, traces, dust, waste, and toxicity, and the body, some sort of disgust or abjection also comes in the process. This performance called action number 9, water, where the two glasses, one of the glass is full of water, and I'm sipping the water, but not drinking it, and throwing it to the another glass, and doing it vice versa until the water vanish, but water doesn't get to the body. The thrust is there. But the water becomes the very glitchy material mixed with saliva, and water vanish. And the performance was done in front of the CCTV camera, looking at different sort of viewership here. And again, bringing the residue and recalling the site of performance, where you see the top of the image, where the simple CCTV camera is there. Next. Again, some image of this residue of the glass. Next. This is the barbed wire ball which I made during my studies, and played with this ball with bare feet and pushing the edges simply into the campus. Next. This is the recent project which I am doing at Delhi, at FICA, which is looking at the project called Insoluble Substance and Separate Existence. The title is coming from Kanchai Lai, and I'm kind of picking a particular objects and installing in a different way. Scale becomes one particular construct as a common idea which has a particular major, and that leads to the idea of belief, the particular belief, and that belief turning into the weapon, or the weapon turning to the scale in a way. And below that you have this particular toy object which chopped in a very specific way. And again developing a conversation on it, developing a thought on it. Thank you.
May I now invite Gyanvant Yadav. Gyanvant was born in Pratapgarh district, Uttar Pradesh. He comes from a family of farmers, and his practice is based on his observations on the relationship between the soil, farmers, the tools, food, and culture. Over the years, he has witnessed a lot of transformation in villages, and as an artist, his area of research includes the changing textures of the agricultural field, its environments and ecologies, and the eventual inevitable effects of urbanism and urban landscapes on village life. His medium of choice include different varieties of natural dust, soil, ink, tissue paper, rice paper, banana paper, grass paper, charcoal, and watercolor. His output is primarily mixed media on paper and on site through different perspectives. The textural surface of village and public walls serve as an inspiration for him. Through these, he explores elements of the agrarian landscape, its inhabitants, and the residues they leave behind. His rootedness in agrarian landscape and its expanse allows him perspectives that he wishes to develop further through his artistic practice.
थैंक यू सर। और मैं धन्यवाद देना चाहूँगा इनलेक्स फाउंडेशन को और साथ ही साथ सभी टीम मेंबर्स को। और कैन यू माई स्टार्ट स्मॉल प्रेजेंटेशन।
Hello everyone, I am Gyanvant Yadav from Pratapgarh, उत्तर प्रदेश। मेरा आर्ट प्रैक्टिस विभिन्न मीडियम्स से संबंधित है, जैसे पेंटिंग, परफॉर्मिंग आर्ट, साइड स्पेसिफिक और इंस्टॉलेशन। क्योंकि मैं एक किसान परिवार से ज़मीनी तौर से जुड़ा हूँ, इसलिए मेरा काम गांव और एग्रीकल्चर से जुड़ा है। मुझे विभिन्न प्रकार की मिट्टी, टूल्स, खेती और फार्मर के बीच में क्या रिलेशन है, उसे जानने में मेरी काफ़ी रुचि है। मैं कुछ इस प्रकार से रिसर्च करता हूँ, कैसे विभिन्न मौसम जमीन और फार्मर को प्रभावित करते हैं। मेरा काम करने का प्रोसेस काफ़ी एग्रीकल्चरल प्रोसेस से जुड़ा हुआ है। जिस तरह बीज को बोया और काटा जाता है और रफनेस मैदान में मिलता है, उसी तरह मेरे काम का प्रोसेस भी लेयरिंग और पेस्टिंग से जुड़ा है। मैं बहुत बारीकी से देखता हूँ विभिन्न प्रकार के फर्टिलाइजर और केमिकल्स कैसे मिट्टी और पर्यावरण को नुकसान पहुँचा रहे हैं। मैं अपने काम में नेचुरल मटेरियल का यूज करना पसंद करता हूँ। मैं लोकली अवेलेबल मटेरियल्स जैसे न्यूज़पेपर, सॉयल और क्रॉप रेसिड्यू का प्रयोग करता हूँ। इसके अलावा भी राइस पेपर, कलर्ड सीड्स, ट्रेसिंग पेपर और दीवार पर लगे टेक्सचरल पोस्टर का भी प्रयोग करता हूँ और यह मेरे मटेरियल कलेक्शन का एक हिस्सा है।
फोटो आगे खिंचवाई खिंचवा लेनी।
मैं पुनः फार्मिंग के लाइंस, कलर्स, टेक्सचर और फार्मिंग स्पेस को अपने आइडिया के थ्रू रिक्रिएट करने की कोशिश करता हूँ। इसलिए मेरे काम में खेत की रफनेस और इंसान का बदलता खेतों पे प्रभाव देखने को मिलता है।
परिवर्तन में आती है।
धन्यवाद।
And our final artist today is Shish Dev Sagaria. May I invite Shish Dev to come here. Shish Dev Sagaria is an Odisha-based artist. His practice works towards uncovering the inequalities within the healthcare system with respect to caste and alienation of marginalized communities from health and medical perspectives. He brings forth how the bodies of marginalized and lower castes are always considered impure, hence unhealthy and diseased. Relegated to the margins, these bodies have not only been estranged from society but also strategically erased from our memories, literature, histories, and archive. His medium of choice is printmaking, via which he explores possibilities through which installations and other mediums come up. In addition to printmaking, he works with painting, video, sculpture, and photography. He has exhibited in a number of group shows, including Embark 3, an online show at Gallery Arc, Vadodara, Gujarat 2020. So, please share.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here. I would like to thank Inlaks Foundation for this opportunity as well as to all the juries. And I'm going to present a small video presentation which I have made. Thank you. Hi, I'm Shish Dev. I was born and brought up in the western part of Odisha. I went to Government College of Art and Craft, Khalikot, Odisha for my bachelor and pursued my masters from MS University, Baroda, which I completed in 2019. I showed a specific fascination towards the practice of human figure drawing and the idea of garment design, which led me to think, question and research what is human body and why do we layer a garment on our body. After looking at my surrounding, reading and listening, I came across many classifications such as normal and abnormal body, pure and impure body, able and disabled body, and so on and so forth. I attempted to comprehend how our body is being classified and by whom, and I started to collect and depict bodies that are considered abnormal, diseased, hideous, and unnatural. Later, I specifically focused on skin and its various characteristics which are perceived as repulsive and grotesque. Printmaking medium is one of the reasons why I got interested in the idea of skin. The entire process of printmaking seems like a skin making to me. The process from preparing a block to taking print conceptually draws a parallel with the function of the skin and its various conditions. The grain on the surface of wood and how zinc plate reacts to acid gives a deformed texture. The printing surface becomes the skin while the unpredictable nature of the medium and the accidental marks replicates the wound or the scar. I created a body of work where I dealt with the idea of attire as a second skin and how various conditions of skin is becoming a motif for the ornamentation on the body itself, and made a set of wearable attire and objects to begin a dialogue and conversation around body with different skin conditions that we find unpleasant and grotesque, and to question why do such unique phenomena of human body makes the onlooker or viewer uncomfortable. Also, I was looking at the psychodermatology, the study of the interconnections of mind and skin, how our skin and mind interacts. After a long period of time, I went to my village where I spent almost 2 years owing to the pandemic. During this period, I observed and documented various bodies that are around me and wondered why such bodies don't exist in our narrative and history, and why are we alienated from basic resources, and discovered how caste hierarchy and the theory of purity and pollution plays a major role in the health disparities, and also researching why the bodies of marginalized and low caste are considered impure, hence unhealthy and diseased, and being alienated and erased. I began this project by documenting, painting, and archiving various body parts of villagers that are wounded, injured, and etched. Simultaneously, I discovered different stories, myth, stigma, and alternative narratives concerning villagers' body. Hailing from a rural area, I have witnessed people's disinterest towards modern healthcare simply due to the difficulties in accessing it. In such circumstance, the tendency has been to adapt and learn to live with disease and unageness, and such strange tendencies are developing on account of alienation caused by caste, class, gender, and health politics. In my recent project, I am developing various kind of hybrid characters which I am creating by taking reference from villagers' body and the instruments and tools they use in day-to-day life, which changes the function of their body. I have come to see these tools and instruments as an extension of the labor body and treat these tools as an organ or a technology or deformed part of body. This instrument is called copper. Villagers use it when they dry paddy or other grain. The character of the instrument resembles the hand because this instrument is an extension of human hand which is replacing hand's work. Copper appears like a distorted hand when I see a person with it, which will be perceived as an alien being or a post-human disease. In this project, I am exploring the alternative narrative of marginalized body and the alienated environment. Also, I am talking about different philosophies of alienation and the science fictional narrative on the existence of other being, which mostly comes from the perspective of racism and colonialism, but I am exploring through the lens of caste and rural land perspective. Thank you.
Thank you to the artists for their wonderful presentations. We're very privileged for the next part of our program to have three of our very distinguished alumni. They're going to perform for us. We're going to have three artist performances. But before we get to that, may I invite the jury up on the stage to give the awards to the 2023 awardees. Sanjay and Shilpa, Sheila, come. Could we have some light on the podium? Yeah, thank you. And if the awardees could come up, then. Could all of you all just come up and. Very informal way. Thank you so much. We're a little behind schedule, so we're rushing a little bit. The next part of our program are the performances. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our first artist for this evening, Inlaks Fine Art Awardee, Debashish Paul. Debashish explores the problems of queer identity in a society dominated by heterosexual norms. Paul has a BFA in sculpture from the Indian College of Art and Draftsmanship, Kolkata, and a master's degree in sculpture from Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi, in 2021. Paul was part of the residency and performance program by HH Art Space Foundation in collaboration with the Kochi Musris Biennale 22-23. He is also recipient of the 22-23 Prince Claus Seed Fund, as well as the Inlaks Fine Art Award in 22. In 21, he was awarded the Allegro Prize by Contemporary Links UK and received the Indian Artist Relief Fund. Debashish will present Metamorph, a performance that is a symbolic representation of his search for his true self. Thank you, Debashish. That was a wonderful performance. Our next artist this evening is Gurjit Singh. Gurjit Singh is a Chandigarh-based artist. He works across mediums including sculpture, painting, drawing, and sound and interactive performances. A recurring theme in his work is identity and how losses and love shape them, with a particular interest in LGBTQ stories. He uses textiles and found materials to bring the stories he works with to life for his audiences. Gurjit received his MFA and BFA as a gold medalist from the Government College of Art, Chandigarh. He is the recipient of the Inlaks Fine Art Award 21, 30 under 30 by the Hindustan Times and the Punjab Lalit Kala Academy. Gurjit's performance, Erase, invites us to question whether we can truly erase from our being and consciousness the impact certain events have on us. Thank you, Gurjit, for that very sensitive performance. The final performance for the evening is by Sahej Rahal. Sahej needs no introduction to this audience. We all know him. Sahej is primarily a storyteller. He weaves together fact and fiction to create counter mythologies that interrogate narratives shaping the present. His myth world takes the shape of sculptures, performances, films, paintings, installations, and AI programs that he creates by drawing upon sources ranging from local legends to science fiction, rendering scenarios where indeterminate beings emerge from the cracks of our civilization. Rahal's participation in group and solo exhibitions include Manifesto 14, the Guangzhou Biennale, the Liverpool Biennale, the Kochi Biennale, the Vancouver Biennale, Macro Museum Rome, Cadist San Francisco, ACA Melbourne, CCA Glasgow. Actually, it's a very, very long list. So, Sahej, I'm not going to read the rest. Please look at your booklet. It's a very long list. Sahej's performance, Soft Reset, re-examines the shifting relationship of the human to non-human forms of intelligence. Sahej will come and introduce the performance to us. Thank you.
Hey, hi, I'm Sahej. Sorry, because this is going to involve technology, I just need like 5 minutes to set up. While I do that, I can just kind of tell you who I am and all that. So I'm Sahej, like I said, and I mean, I make things up, yeah? Like that's counter mythologies, all of that, that's just like a funny way of saying I make things up. I lie. Like one of the lies is this is not really a performance. It's not really, sorry. But it's a game, yeah, that we'll play together, right? Achha, so games have rules, right? Like all games have rules, huh? So like this art game that we're playing also has rules, no? Like so what is art? Like, you know, what is this thing all about? Like I mean, there's like multiple definitions and all, right? Like, and then some people are like, you know, it's sort of like a consensus on what culture is and like things like that, that, you know, a group of people decide. That's not the definition by which we'll play today. Art is the measure of freedom, yeah? Like, you can tell how free society is by how well the projectors connect. No, you can tell how free society is by how what artists can get away with, right? Is this on? Acha, freedom. So, dude, it's not working. Right. फ्रीडम को यहाँ पे क्या बोलते हैं? हाँ, जोर से. हाँ, एक और बार. ये बात हुई ना. अच्छा, ये फिर से बोलना पड़ेगा, जरा याद रखना. So, you know, all of us, we were, like the last 2 years, we kind of went through this ordeal, right? Like, which is still sort of playing itself out. The pandemic happened, and you know, civilization sort of fell apart. Now, this is sort of something that's been on my mind, you know, ever since the pandemic came. What comes next? Whatever comes next. Can what comes next transcend the present, the sort of like, you know, the dreariness of the present that we find ourselves in? You know, we are witnessing the return of natural history. Microbiology has taken center stage. typhoons are becoming a monthly affair, while we struggle to stitch back our lives under the shadow of a global pandemic that has turned the very air we breathe hostile. Um, on the other hand, technology threatens to subsume every aspect of being under a barrage of banality, boredom, and bad faith. It overwhelms us with planetary scale obfuscations that distract and deceive us into believing that every day and everywhere is always going to remain the same. Beneath this stupor of distraction, the nation state has turned into a site of collapsing time. The past is lurking back into the present. As we march headlong towards a majoritarian state that is premised on a half-baked idea of civilizational purity, excluding all others, silencing them through violent police action. This form of othering by exclusion finds its roots in this ancient myth that lies at the heart of Indian civilization, right? The caste system. So very quickly, what the idea of caste is sort of premised on this myth, this story, fairy tale, that at the center of the universe, there is this universal man, right, Manu. And his body is essentially, by way, the way in which society is sort of defined, like his head become the high caste Brahmins, his feet become the lower caste, and everyone who lies outside of this body does not belong to society, right? We find, I mean, this kind of, anatomy being supplanted onto society and is violently so in, the CAA and NRC laws and these draconian Cold War era laws, which essentially ask for people to present papers from the 70s. Anyway, so at the present, we find ourselves in this strange state of dissections between subject and society, between past and future, and between mind and limb, right? So at this point, I'd like to suggest a suturing of these categories, so to speak. So this weird black thing that you see dripped in petroleum is an AI program. It's a simulation of this being that might emerge once we go extinct. And the way it's designed is that each bone in this calcified petroleum body has a script attached to it, an AI script that's kind of governing its movements. So there's no single mind, but a congregation of these proto-minds that are attached to each limb and act in congress to animate the creature. And some of you might have noticed, like, it's as I speak, my voice interrupts its movement and it's listening, right? It's dancing to my voice, right? And then when, like, sounds at a particular intensity are heard, it starts emanating these black kind of forms. Sorry. So sort of like this, collapsing that division between mind and limb and coming up with a being, a post-human being that could possibly, populate the planet once we're gone, or with us. I mean, it's quasi-sentient, it's sentient in a certain way. Now it's built using, like, AI technology, which it's this strange non-human form of intelligence that is pretty much taken up every aspect of our lives, right? Like, whether you're using Google Maps or you're using any piece of technology, you are bound to encounter one form of AI in your life, like in your daily life, just going through your day. Um, how does this happen? Like there's this one organization. Well, I mean, it's a startup called BetterHalf.ai. I don't know if anyone's familiar with it. Um, so the way BetterHalf.ai is designed is that like you upload your CV onto this app, and it pairs you based on your job qualifications. So like if you're an MBA, you get paired with an MBA. This essentially kind of takes the the kind of antitheses of caste, class, gender, everything into the next millennium, assuming we survive. And they're doing quite well. Like they got bought out by LinkedIn. Okay, so this is like a really kind of stark example, but then at the same time, you take something like Hinge or one of these other matchmaking apps. Like and I was on Hinge for research. Uh, so the way Hinge works is, you're given prompts, like you build like a profile, and then yeah, so like prompts would be, one thing that I find cute is how otters hold hands when they sleep in the water so they don't drift apart, and that's it's really heartwarming, right? But when you see 37 profiles with that, it's just. And this is just a prompt that the app is kind of giving you. And I mean, this is not to say that like I am guilty of falling for you if you kick me in the shins as well. Anyway, now what does this do? Like, this sort of like flattens the messy kind of multitude that constitutes us as people, like, into this like very normative set of prompts, and that's kind of how scripts are written as well. Like that's how like I mean AI works. Like it's like programs are essentially like. I mean, this is reductive. Sorry if there are computer engineers in the room. I don't mean to like kind of. You do important work and all that. But so they're essentially a series of cascading if and then statements. Yeah. So if this, then that. If a certain variable is fed, then you perform a certain kind of action. If you see a certain kind of WhatsApp forward, then you do certain things. That I mean that's social engineering, I guess. Anyway, so you've got this very deterministic sort of model that's being again supplanted onto society, that's playing itself out, and there's towards a teleological outcome. What big word for essentially saying that like we're heading towards this like flattening, this like featureless form of efficiency. It just makes things faster. Like Google Maps takes you from one place to the other faster. Right? Acha. Now, using those same technologies, what I've tried to create, maybe in the next one will be a little more obvious. So this kind of teleological flattening that you sort of that we are kind of being led towards through anti-human systems of bureaucracy, or like these non-human systems of technology, or we leave biology out of it. But anyway, now they're sort of leading us to this kind of flattening, right? This apocalyptic kind of featureless future. Now, there's a Sikh poet, Harinder Singh Mehboob, who kind of says that this act of moving towards this future is essentially an something that kind of began with language, right? And the sort of litany of categories that we kind of put ourselves into. Like, when I say I am man, this is world, this is air, you are other, you are outsider, you are immigrant, you are virus, I am creating a separation. And then that distance that comes from like the self and the other essentially becomes the ground upon which civilizational violence is enacted, right? What Mehboob says is that this is not the true shape of things. What he imagines the universe, the entirety of being as this song. He says, Utte Raga, there's a song that kind of precedes the world that we find ourselves in. And the job of art is to sort of return to that song, right? Now, how does that one do that with, how do we return to that song? That, okay, Mehboob says that birds know this song, you know, even though man has distanced himself by naming things, birds know this song because they mourn their dead in music. The morning call of the bird, like, you know, when they sort of do this morning call, that's actually a roll call to remind their fellow birds, their lovers, that they made it through the night, you know, and they speak in song, they congregate in song, right? So that's Mehboob, right? Now, how does one then sing against this cancelled future, right? Like, or in spite of it, right? So first you'll have to make some noise for me, yeah? Like, I mean, now you've got this being that is sort of like sort of figuring out how to move on this like desolate sort of landscape with overgrown mushrooms, and as it's picking up sound, it is kind of, you know, changing its movements and dancing. And there's this one word that it responds to really well. Bolo? जोर से हम क्या चाहते हम क्या चाहते हम क्या चाहते जोर से बोलो भाई खाना नहीं खाया आजादी आजादी अच्छा so it moves now and then how does this movement then how do we use the fact that it listens and is capable of hearing our voice in the presence of this kind of stalemate of the present, right? It can still hear us, this portal into the future. How do we sing with it then, right? So each tentacle of this being has an array of notes that I recorded with this friend of mine, Niyati Upadhyay, who's an artist and a singer. And as the creature sort of navigates the environment and like each limb sort of lands on the terrain, can hear it singing in these kind of multiple voices, and that's basically happening when each limb falls on the now what's happening is that it's also kind of responding to the song that it's generating by itself and kind of creating this feedback loop that is kind of passing through the room. And it is also picking up like every sort of like, you know, sounds that are being made through the room. Like it's picking up everything, including my voice, our breath. And each time the program is kind of reset, it starts this process all over again. So, and it starts creating this infinite song that keeps changing. And now, like hypothetically speaking, we go extinct, you know, human civilization ends, right? Like, this program would keep singing till the last sounds of the universe are heard, right? Thank you.
Sahej, thank you. I don't know what to say. I'm just speechless. At this point, I'd like to just throw this open to everyone. Does anyone have any questions of Sahej, of the other performers, of the artists? We can just do a quick round of. Does anyone have any questions? Or otherwise, we'll get on to the thanks and to moving upstairs for refreshments. Yeah? Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Sahej, for your performance. I'm thinking the idea of being, you are calling it being, and same time I'm also thinking being is something which not always coded. It kind of extend that particular measure which you have given. It seems like the character here has a particular response, and it's not extending that. So in that sense, I'm kind of thinking about how it becomes, you know, the being, which in way, or the AI in a way. So that was a kind of one question, and the other question was, we are also looking at that particular being from the frame of other, right? So that that I is there, which is continuously following. So I'm not that. So we are not looking from that particular character. We are looking from our position. So I am following it. So yeah, these two positions, if you can explore more.
The maybe I'll answer the second one first. Okay? So the idea that like you are following it, the way the program works is that it's actually an AI controlled cameraman that is kind of following the creature, right? So and at some points you see the camera kind of go under the terrain as well. It's essentially trying to frame the action in a certain way and kind of adhere to, you know, the fact that like this mesh, this 3D model is the ground and that one is what it needs to look at. What I mean by this is like the program kind of decides how it wants to present itself as well, right? How it'll kind of frame that creature that's wandering, like what angle, where will it? In fact, there's times where it will kind of just jump out of the environment, like, you know, it didn't do that thankfully right now, but yeah. Yeah, so that's one. And the idea of being, so no, they're not alive, really. Like, it's not alive. You know, they're quasi sentient in a way. You know what I mean by that is they're pretending to be sentient. You know, now in a larger sense, what this opens up, is like, what does it mean to be sentient? None of us have any answers. Buddhism sort of defines sentience as anything that changes is sentient. Crystals are sentient in the sort of Buddhist cosmology, whereas the kind of model that for intelligence that computational technology is sort of proposing, a certain kind of like, this is not to kind of like make one broad stroke about computational technology, but the kind of version that you're sort of seeing propped up by ChatGPT, OpenAI, Google, largely Facebook, is a very deterministic model, right? Which is saying that this is how the mind functions. Like, I don't know if you've encountered this one idea that Elon Musk sort of proposed at one point, and he's sort of, I don't know if he's backed off on it or not, but there was this whole idea of Neuralink, where you could put nodes on your brain, and those would kind of trigger certain causal responses. But that's not how the mind functions. In the sense, we don't know where our thoughts come from, really. Like, or what, like this kind of fundamental idea of what is consciousness is like, you need to do a copious amount of drugs to kind of like get to an answer. And anyway, jokes apart, it doesn't really lead anywhere. But why is it important? Essentially every myth that sort of precedes any kind of like normative kind of meta-narrative that is enforced on us, be it of caste, be it of nationhood, requires an idea of what is sentient human, and this figure of the human is actually an exclusionary category. I mean, caste is just one example of it. Like, if you look at the West, when you look at the entire Enlightenment project, right? Descartes has this like, T-shirt slogan, right? I think, therefore I am. This, when Descartes says this, I think, therefore I am, he essentially creates the same kind of bifurcation, that binary that Mehboob is talking about, where, he puts the world outside, the world becomes secondary, and the body actually becomes part of that world. The mind precedes all of this. And then that distance is used to enact the empire, industrialization, wars. Everything sort of is seated on this one idea that, the mind kind of precedes the world that we inhabit. Okay, now, these beings kind of are conceiving of a way of flattening that hierarchy, and this is one possible outcome. Like, when we speak of possible worlds, that there's multitude of worlds that we can all imagine together. Yeah. But yeah, they're not alive. Ashok.
Hi. Sahej, thanks. Trying to maybe include the others in this question. So in my let's say 15 years ago, a group of friends who were playing around with computers and doing art of the kind that you're also doing. We ran into this sort of philosophical problem or something, that you can map within a software system, you can map anything to anything, right? There's no causal relation. So you can map your sound to the movement of a monster, or to the the lowering of the lights in the room, or to the happiness of somebody on Neuralink, or right. There was an infinity of choices, which I would say froze the discipline of interactive art terminally, right? In a way, right? It became possible to link anything to anything else, which became a problem, right? So people started to look for where does this break down, right? What is meaningful? Right? You can always construct meaning, but what is truly meaningful or something? So just to say also in terms of the fragility of bodies, and so any loop will run forever, right? That's the sort of the problem, that anything go to 10 will keep going. So where does it break down? Like where does it break? Because for me the mic is listening maybe, and the creature is just one visualization you have chosen for representing that, let's say.
But
right?
I mean, there's a reason why I chose that visualization.
Right, of course. So when does it die?
Oh,
when should it die? Or what's the... Where is this body of thing fragile in some way or not?
It's fragile in the way that like no, I mean, it's not fragile also in a way. Like, it is resilient. Like, I'm a vitalist actually. Very like cards on the table. I'm interested in how does things that don't kill you make you stronger. And I think that is something that art can kind of like remind us of. Right, the causal bit. It's not causal. In fact, one of my sort of guiding principles was this Sufi theologian Al-Ghazali, who kind of comes up with this fantastic idea that every instant of every instant of time essentially presents the Almighty Allah with a chance to create the universe afresh, right? So the fact that like A and B seem like they are moving causally is purely happenstance. It could very well be something entirely different, right? This doctrine is sort of, it's called accidentalism or occasionalism, like जैसे बॉम्बे में बोलते हैं ऐसे ही है, चल रहा है, मतलब कैसे चल रहा है ये नहीं मालूम पर चल रहा है दुनिया, ठीक है? That's kind of what's happening over here. I mean, in the interest of time, I didn't show you more programs, but I could, like, I mean, so that's something I'm interested in. How do I remove that perceived causality even more? How do I turn these beings feral, or oops, it's all there. Sorry. Sorry. Ashok is also partly to blame for this, huh? Right. So, so what's happening here is that there's more creatures because I got better at programming, and there's some fancy camera work also that it does beach mein. And that bunch of particles that are sort of wandering around it is essentially a script that it's writing. It's a form of asemic writing that, like, it keeps drawing lines till, like, someone turns it off. And all of these things, all of these elements, like, the points at which the camera will move away, it'll come back, are all governed by changes in voice, in sound that it picks up. But not in a way that, like, you keep making the same sound over and over again and you'll get the same reaction. To kind of push that form of, that causal relationship even further away is essentially what's kind of going on. This one's not ready, so I won't show you all of it. But yeah. But yeah, that's something I'm interested in.
Thank you so much. We can continue this conversation upstairs on the terrace over a glass of wine and some canapes. Just quick thank yous to everyone who made this evening happen, to Zoya, without whom we couldn't do anything. Zoya, where are you? A big round of applause for her, please. To Gladys, who sees the whole process from the applications to the selections, and to Anaita, who helped coordinate the evening, to our wonderful jury, who gave so much of their time, and last but not the least, to our incredible alumni, who make all that we do happen. The three performers this evening, and we have so many alumni in the audience today: Shaina, Sheila, Ghansham, Pratap, who's coming back in. Just thank you, all of you all, for being here and giving us so much of your time. So please join us upstairs.
Also for Amita ma'am, who's held this fort together.
Oh God.
What it is. Come on.
Please join us on the terrace where we can have something stimulating and continue the conversation. Thank you.